Okay, let's dig in. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We take your source material and, well, we unpack what you need to know, quickly.
That's the idea.
Today, it's all about these news reports you shared covering the escalating tensions between Israel and Iran, direct military exchanges.
Yeah, pretty serious developments reported.
So our mission now is just to pull out the key facts, the reactions, the impacts, straight from these sources, give you a clear picture.
Do it.
All right, so the initial actions, according to these reports, looks like Israel kicked things off with a major wave of strikes.
What kind of scale are we talking about?
The sources quote the Israeli military saying over 200 targets hit across Iran.
200, wow.
Yeah. And Prime Minister Netanyahu reportedly called it Operation Rising Lion, the stated objective, thwarting Iran's nuclear and missile threats.
So a preventative justification, essentially.
That's how it's framed in the quotes, yes. He claimed they eliminated top commanders, senior nuclear scientists, even a key enrichment facility, wiped out a chunk of the missile arsenal.
And didn't he add something else?
He did. A warning. More is on the way. Pretty blunt.
Definitely raises the stakes.
And the Israeli military specifically mentioned hitting a nuclear facility site in Isfahan province.
Okay, Isfahan. Noted.
But interestingly, one Israeli commentator mentioned in the sources, while seeing Iran as part of Israel's sort of foundational narrative,
Right.
suggested this specific attack might have been, well, symbolic, maybe even a detraction.
An interesting perspective from within Israel, noted in the sources. So how did Iran respond, according to these reports?
Well, again, based on the sources, Iran didn't wait long. State news agency reported a crushing response underway. Hundreds of ballistic missiles launched towards Israel.
Hundreds. So a very significant retaliation.
The IRGC, Iran's Revolutionary Guard, confirmed it, called it a precise response against dozens of targets, military centers, and air bases.
Okay, so targeting military infrastructure specifically.
That's what they claimed. And reports confirmed sirens blaring across Israel, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, explosions heard.
The Iron Dome must have been active.
Heavily engaged, yeah, intercepting missiles. But the sources do mention impacts. At least 21 people injured in Israel reported.
Any serious injuries mentioned?
2 serious injuries in the Tel Aviv area, reportedly, and damage to apartment building.
Okay, and Iran took other measures.
They reportedly closed their airspace and claimed they shot down Israeli jets. Israel denies this, by the way.
Right, conflicting claims there.
Yeah.
What about the leadership's tone?
The supreme leader was quoted, said Israel initiated a war and vowed a, quote, decisive, painful response. Said Israel wouldn't get away with hit-and-run attacks.
Strong words, so a clear message of escalation from Tehran, too.
Exactly. Now, shifting to the wider world, how did everyone else react? The sources show a mix of urgent diplomacy and, well, different viewpoints.
As you expect. What about Russia?
Reports say President Putin had calls with both Iranian and Israeli leaders, urging diplomacy.
Okay, playing mediator, perhaps.
But the Kremlin statement also expressed condolences to Iran for casualties and condemned Israel's actions, called them a violation of the UN Charter.
So, condemning Israel while calling for peace.
Pretty much, and wanting a peaceful resolution to the nuclear program issue. Russia's UN envoy echoed this at the Security Council.
What did they say there?
Condemned Israel's unprovoked attack, including the nuclear site strikes. Called for Security Council action, warning it could risk a large-scale war.
So putting pressure on the international stage.
Seems like it. The UK's foreign secretary also urged calm in a call with his Iranian counterpart, described the Israeli strikes as a unilateral act.
Unilateral. Interesting phrasing.
And the U.S. reports say President Biden was briefed, knew about the attacks beforehand. The sources also mention a link to a previous 60-day deadline about Iran's nuclear monitoring compliance.
Ah, okay. So some context there about ongoing nuclear tensions.
And one more tragic note in the sources. A missile reportedly fired from Yemen injured 3 Palestinian children in Hebron.
Right, a reminder of the regional spillover risks.
Right.
So, pulling this together, what does the analysis within these sources suggest?
Good question. Well, there's a think tank's assessment of satellite imagery over Natanz, Iran's nuclear site.
What did that show?
Reportedly damage to several buildings, including the pilot fuel enrichment plant, the PFEP, and an electrical substation.
It's significant, right? For advanced centrifuges.
Exactly. The reports say its destruction is significant because that's where Iran apparently has over 1,700 advanced centrifuges doing R&D on newer, faster ones. It's a key experimental work.
But was everything hit?
No. The imagery reportedly showed no visible damage to the main underground facility or a new complex being built nearby.
Okay, so targeted damage, perhaps, not total destruction of the site.
Seems that way based on this imagery analysis. Then there's a military analyst, quoted.
Was their take?
They looked at Iran's retaliation, those missile waves at Tel Aviv, for example. Said it shows Iran's military can regroup and launch complex attacks even after losing leaders.
So resilient.
And also, the sheer number of missiles suggests Iran has a big enough arsenal. The analyst's conclusion: Israel's prior deterrence efforts seem to have failed.
Failed deterrence. That's a strong assessment.
It is. So, wrapping up the core takeaway from these sources, we have this cycle, right? Israeli strikes on military, nuclear sites reported.
Met by a massive Iranian missile barrage hitting Israel. Very direct.
We've got the official statements, the reported injuries, the damage, sharp military action, forceful retaliation described.
And the international reactions calls for calm, but different views on who started what, according to the documents.
So here's something to think about, based just on what we've covered from your sources. How might these specific reported details, like the targeted damage at Natanz's PFEP but not underground, or that analyst's view on Iran's capability and failed deterrence, influence what happens next? Especially when you set that against the backdrop of those diplomatic calls for calm also mentioned in the reports.
Yeah, that tension between the reported military facts on the ground and the diplomatic language is definitely something to watch.